Greetings, everyone. How y'all doing? Welcome to Israel Doctrine's podcast. And the show tonight is the truth about Israel Doctrine, Rawyal Oder. I'm gonna give him the order. I was doing the conscious community order. I couldn't get him under my order, so I'm gonna give it to Roy. I'm gonna unite someone else with the task. It ain't even a big task. It's just putting down laws, statutes, and commandments of how we should do things. And I think he's one of the best guys to put that in his hands. So it said his order is going viral. And whether you know it or not, it has went viral over the years and things. But before we really get into the show, I want to play something.
Okay. Yeah. Till I'm just ringing in your ear like tinnitus. Welcome to my world, Royal Highness. I lost more patience than Pfizer's grip. Ain't nobody ill as me and Griff. So lyrically inclined, I'm just silly with the shit. Bitch, Broadway Bates is really from the bricks. 33 degrees, guns really with the shit. Me, Mr. Royal, I know I got a gift. The way I paint the picture, I'm a poet with the pen. Got the shooters on the block in the pick. Still not a player with the layup for the chip. The track killer, yeah, I'm liable again. Scorch the earth with the fire for the win. While inspiring my ghetto empire, it's no retiring. The war going on, lay low. Keep firing, I pilot through the chaos. Gone, it's the seance. Rolling, strip, drip, my exquisite make a big splash. Strip, drip, make a big splash. Strip, drip. Yeah, make a big splash. This is that warfare, make a big splash. Flow that wavy.
Ooh, that's crazy.
Yeah, slow down, baby. Dope is throwback 80s. Make a big splash. Moving like I know Scorsese. Good fella with the wolf gang. De Niro, Mujo, Wu-Tang. Cream of the crop. Ghetto certified hip-hop. Scholar like Hakuna Matata. Hottest Savannah. Big splash. It's hell up in Harlem. Blowing like lava. Big splash. Dripping like vodka. Gripping the chopper. Big splash. Biggest Chewbacca. Lyrical monster. Big splash. Splash. Melaging with Madonna, my version blacker than Ghana. Big splash. Make a big splash. Back of the lacking for nada. Sleep if you wanna. Splash. From preaching on corners and weak for the martyrs. Splash. The beast is enormous. Reef is just awesome. Make a big splash. A piece of the pot. Poison opponents. Make a big splash. Drip. Reef is just awesome. Make a big splash. Keeping them honest. Big splash. It's your birthday big. Rapping for mermaids. Horse and carriage the Hermes. Family feud in the survey says. Drip. My exquisite. Make a big splash. Drip. Make a big splash. Drip. Yeah. Make a big splash. This is that warfare. Make a big splash.
All right, Pete. All right. What's the matter with the screen now? It's not like this, so you can't see us. What's up, Royal? Unmute yourself. I'll mute you. How you doing?
Check. Yeah, everything good. You hear me?
Yeah, I'm good. You unmuted. We about to get this show started.
All right.
Peace. Make a big splash.
Drip. Here we go. That's what I'm talking about.
So what's been going on with you? What's been going on? The streets ain't heard from you in a while.
Yeah. Just multitasking, man. You know, paradigm shifting, that type of stuff, regular stuff, man. You know, and everything take a little bit of time. When you got to rely on yourself, it's gonna take a little longer than expected. But you know, progress is progress.
How many hats are you wearing these days?
Oh man. My man just called me goddamn the Headleys and shit, motherfucking more hats than the Headleys. So, man, we got 15 jobs, man. 15. So, yes. Yeah, I gotta write that down. But yeah, just out of everything, you already know that the main mission is the main mission. As far as
a small order. Give us three. How you got your life? You a hip hopper? You a political dude? You an artist? You this and that. So here's three hats that you represent these days.
Yeah. So, the main thing is doing our best to keep the future livable for the children, right? So meaning like those experimental jabs that they was doing to everybody, now it's no longer a mystery, a conspiracy about what was going on. So that was one of the missions that we can check off the checklist. But at the same time, as they're exposing the fact that yes, they was lying to people, they were programming people, and they was poisoning children, etc. And they still trying to push forward like these things are not being said in Congress. Like it's no longer like small community centers and street corner conversations. This is said in Congress. This is said on large platforms, mainstream news, mainstream media. No longer a hearsay or who are they. It's now they are exposed. And so the part of breaking the people out of the spell, because they can see they're under the spell, but most people still try to hold on to it. And the youth are already pre-programmed to follow, these systems that was keeping them in a trap. And because that they already have this program, it's from the music to the new content that they see on the internet. Social gatherings aren't the same anymore. So, but through music and the internet, takes up a large space to help, free more minds and get the message across that the poison is poison. The program of propaganda and nonsense is real. They are exposed. You know who they are, whether it's Klaus Schwab, the Bill Gates, the all of these different shadowy characters that were. Who are they? Is there a such thing? Now they already have put their clubhouse on the forefront, so any and everybody can listen to their message without any confusion about about what's being said or what the plan is. So on my end, keeping that as a part of the mission that's already on autopilot, because now that is the curtains are pulled back, it's the blessing is the blessing with the curtains pulled back, right? So that takes a lot more stress off of pre-2020, right? So personally, is where I found myself. I say getting my shit together, getting my life together, because like getting out of child support and then jumping straight into the community to try to help the community at the same time, and then when you turn around, your house ain't in order. So me at this point is doing things like that to try to do my best to get my own personal things in order and back on track to make personal progress for myself through my music, through my art, through my life, my livelihood, etc., and still make progress with the community.
That's why we're here. That's why the show is entitled Rawyal Oder.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I've seen you deal with the so-called conscious community.
Yeah.
And how you went to war with the polites and the Tahaka Bay and all these different individuals that was doing what they was doing back then. And I seen you handle it in an orderly fashion, a respectable fashion. So, would you like to speak about that chaos you went through?
Yeah, it's it was Taj Tariq bait, not Tahaka. I don't want don't start that new, homie. Don't start that. It's like I ain't got time. Hey, no new problems.
My bad. Remember I had a stroke.
Salute to Tahaka, salute to Taj.
So what was the question, just so I can make sure I'm
just thinking about that time and how you handled it in the respectable fashion that you did.
Okay. How I handled it was, I want to be completely honest in about what was my mindset set, and what was going through my mind at the time was, I knew I was being, spiritually protected. My confidence was that anything and everything that was in front of me, I was going to be able to handle. And every part of the mission was meant to make progress, for an experience that I needed to go through and that people needed to see. So I had that as a mentality, like, in all honesty. So everything that I was doing and how I was handling it was like knowing, like, quote unquote, God is on your side type of thing. You get what I'm saying? Even the devil winds up on your side, because everything works in your favor. When things go wrong, just so happened, if that didn't go wrong, this wouldn't have been right. You get what I'm saying? So is that type of spiritual balance that kept me moving forward, that pushed through when you seen I was clearly on somebody else's platform, outnumbered, and but I wasn't, out organized in my mind. I was organized enough to know what was going to happen in the future, and what needed to happen right then, because I carried the energy of what happened in the past. So to prevent those past mistakes, you got to make those slight adjustments, and all the adjustments that I made, I can tell you in this conversation on how we come to this order like that. I can tell you what worked and what didn't work. What worked was, while I was dealing with the community, I was also going through child support. The community, when we bring up Ataj Tariq and in the Hebrew Israelites at that time, in the quote unquote Kemites type of thing like that, all of the conversations, everybody had their own distinct way of trying to describe the system. And the system, I found, where I can let you know now, is the glass ceiling of the system is called the culture industry. That's the blueprint that the system, corporatism, is called corporatism, right? And their propaganda machine is the culture industry that creates the environment that we consider the norm, like to get back to the norm. And or some people call it the trap, or some people call, different people, the beast, the belly of the beast is the culture industry. So corporatism is basically what the United States is. So you'll see me say America versus the United States. You'll see me have that type of conversation. And just in that discussion with Taj, it exposed a lot of the language that you got to program your mind with, that a lot of people are trying to figure out. So in order to get those things in order, I would say first, being careful of the language, or being mindful of the language that's being used and what's being said. So within the conversation, a lot of people say, I'm not a nigga, I'm not black, I'm not this, I'm not that, right? But the reality is, every little word that they're pulling from is actually dealing with real people, right? So they're dealing, when somebody was called a Sambo, and they was trying to make fun of Sambo and have you disconnect yourself from the Sambos, from being a nigga, from being anything that would be considered nobility or noble or highly righteous, etc. Every single word they was using, that they was trying to pull from the polarity of it, it's basically like a magic trick, and in a time when all you have was herbs, spices, and different conversations that was related to nature, they had to deal with, they was taking notes. And some of those notes were co-opted by colonialists, and they were co-opted by the religious hand of the capitalists at the time, right?
You're talking about terminologies and stuff that's out here.
Say that one more time.
The terminology war.
Yeah, so that's step one, because you see, a lot of people are still trying to have that conversation and have that argument. And
Well,
then
I
when
do
you,
it a lot.
what's that?
I do it a lot myself. I tell
Okay.
people I'm a Israelite Christian instead of a Hebrew Israelite.
But that's good that you do that, that you can distinguish how somebody can actually communicate with you properly. Because if you just go off of, you know, what somebody in Atlanta or somebody in New Jersey or somebody in Detroit, each conversation is using different language, but they're communicating the same message, right? So, but if somebody from New Jersey winds up in Detroit and they're having a conversation, he might be thinking one thing and trying to communicate, you know, something, and that other person won't understand it.
Due to the terminology.
Due to the terminology, there's sometimes a miscommunication. So even if we're in the same, you know, when you're face to face or you're dealing with somebody like in an actual conversation like that, or even if you want to project like we're doing right now online, we have to clarify our order, you know, our mindful, you know, being mindful of the order of how we present our, you know, the message that we're trying to get across, who we are, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're, let's say, you know, for the Moors, the word black, you know, so when you say, man, dude was black, he that, you know, automatically they done turn their ears off, right? And they done, because they feel, oh, you violating, we can't have that conversation, you know, they won't understand anything after that. Now, how that ties into, you know, colonialism and corporatism, because although they're coming from a spiritual aspect as far as dealing with, you know, I think they have a lot of ties to the Nation of Islam or that type of, you know, arm, leg, arm, head, you know, that whole conversation of 5%ers, Nation of Islam, the Moors, they all celebrate Islam basically, right? So, and I'm sure there's more that I don't want to, you know, leave out, but you get what I'm saying. So they're coming from a spiritual standpoint, but then they have a different conversation as far as like business and when they say you can't use this word or that word because, and then they refer to the Black's Law Dictionary instead of the Bible or instead of the Quran. So when they do that, they're telling you how to address them and how they want to be addressed, right? So, but somebody from the nation can talk to you and have a regular conversation and say, yeah, dude, homie was black, and you know what I'm saying, They can have a regular conversation with you. But if you speak with somebody that also, you know, celebrates Islam or is in that path, and you say that, you know, again, there can be a disconnect. So what they're doing and what they're saying is tied to corporatism. And this is what I want to translate in this message to them, to you, to us, to everybody moving forward. Now, corporatism is important because everything from religion to business, churches, schools, entertainment on every level, everything that is incorporated is not, you got to keep that, that's the key word, is incorporated into this corporate system. The United States, your cities, your states, your towns, all of them is a part of corporatism, a lodge and a wall, right? Meaning every one of them functions in the same system. And I believe they added new rules with the UCCs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So corporatism winds up coming into play at its height. It's introduced as the golden era of America, right? And that was the late 1800s, early 1900s. That's where everything shifted into a different language. So that's where you get, after the Civil War and the Union was fighting the Confederates, they was fighting to have a say, you know, as far as the future of the world, the future of the nation and everything like that. So prior to that, it was capitalism from the 1600s to about the 1800s. And capitalism was based on per man, coal, gold, things that you can actually tangibly touch and say, this is mine, these people are mine, the children they have is mine, and anything they do is mine. So that was the mindset of the capitalists. The corporatists said, there's no way I can keep up. There's no way I want to continue to try to, pace him when he has a stud. I don't have a stud over there. You know what I'm saying? So he's outpacing me. That means he has more money than me. So they came up with a different system where you didn't need the person. You can give them a piece of paper, right? Instead of the gold, you get a piece of paper, right? Instead of the coal or anything else, the paper replaced all of that conversation and created what they call a straw man. So now a person can have multiple straw mans, from his social security number, his birth certificate. You can create multiple straw mans, and they all incorporated into the system of corporatism, right? So from late 1800s all the way to about 2001, corporatism was the way to go. So
fiat system is what they created. The fiat currency, the fiat.
Yeah. So that's paper, right? So instead of gold, you get that fiat piece of paper, just paper. But I just want everybody to understand, it's just paper. And like he said, you can look up the word fiat in the financial system and how that becomes the language. But I'm saying everything became paper. Every part of your life was replaced with documents, right? That became money. So that is how they, quote unquote, first collected data. That changes the conversations for everybody. So when you're in one of these groups, one of these fraternities, one of these sororities, one of these lodges, when you in one of the lodges of this wall of corporatism, you have a certain language and how you communicate. Now they wind up setting up different systems and court systems and real estate, and that's where the land start changing hands. They say, yo, you got to go. You can't just say that land is yours, or you can't just go over there. You got to tell them this piece of paper verifies that the land is yours now, right? So where before you just show up, you might bust your gun, you might not, you might just plant a flag, whatever the case is, it was yours. But now they like, you can't just do that. You got to go over there with a piece of paper. So again, that wound up changing the language, where person meant corporation, where black meant corporation, where everything, that was, religious or meant something of no, in a term where of endearment, it was flipped on its side. So that's what the quote unquote magicians at the time, the spiritualists, the magicians, they were hunting down these documents that would give them the key words and the core words to a community. And they would hunt these down, and then you get these different spells on how to reverse the polarity in a word. And when you reverse the polarity in a word, you can reverse the polarity in somebody's mind. So you would have somebody do something that would be counter conducive to themselves or their family. So that was the first step. And then they would do it in small groups and test it in the next group, in the next group. And then you get to a point from the late 1800s to the early 1900s where they were confident in their method, that they created schools of psychologists, only psychologists, because they knew it was going to be a war game. So all of these psychologists, right? You're going to get Darwin, you're getting Sigmund Freud, you're getting high level, quote unquote, psychologists that you're getting Karl Marx, you're getting multiple people that's coming from this school that were created by the Rothschilds in Germany, right? In Frankfurt, Germany. And what they do is, with these schools, they start just distributing them to different states in America. They start telling them, I need you to go to New York, you go to California, you go to Europe, you go to France, you go to this place, that place. So all of their psychologists wind up in high-level positions in the schools. They would go to wherever the Moors left their mark, because the Moors were very thorough in documenting things and leaving blueprints, etc. So most of the things the Moors were passing on to each other at that time were coming from older civilizations. The Moors just were brilliant record keepers and communicators throughout the world. And again, it's all the same people, but it's just different titles, just so you can kind of know through time. The name changes to this, but it's the same people doing it, doing different things. But you would, in that time, you're going to find the conversation of the Moors, because that's where you hear 1492, et cetera, da, 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 and the Columbus in America, et cetera, et cetera. That's the fall of the Moors. That's the beginning of capitalism. Capitalism from then all the way to, until 1800, So then from 1800, you have all of from 1800, from late 1800, early 1900. So 1900. Around 1930, all of the schools are established. There are different documents being written up on what psychological steps needed to be taken to lock in these people, to tell them, to pull them into corporatism, right? Because the old system is capitalism, and there was a way that they was doing things. So they needed to convince people that the new system was the way to go. So whatever you was about, they would tell you. They created Karl Marx to tell people that the system was failing them. Capitalism isn't the way, and and go on and try to promote communism. So you have a lot of people that will fall into that space in that conversation, even setting up entire nations based on what Karl Marx was set out to do. So as he's setting out and doing that, when you look back and listen back to his language that he's using is really important, because some people, maybe had a successful run with his language of, communism and his thought pattern, and they would have a system set up for about a year, and then they would get toppled and toppled and toppled. Because the people behind at that time that were behind the curtains, their message was clear that whether you call it communism, fiat, et cetera, it's corporatism. That is the body. That's body politics. So that body
a little bit more. It's all money.
Okay, now the thing is, I don't want to minimize it, right? So money is one level. But the mind is the money, right? So that's why I'm like, it just depends. I want to be really clear that the system in 2020, people really thought at that time they would never stop the world and stop making money, right? So I said, oh, they will. A lot of people didn't believe me, because it's like impossible to think that these people are so greedy. Why would they stop their money? Because in 2001, right, a new system was introduced. It's called cyberism. Okay, so where before we was in corporatism, and there's, that was the conversation we was leaving off with. 2001, the new system was introduced, Project Blue Beam, and all these different artificial intelligence and the internet, etc. That introduced cyberism.
Silicon Valley was created.
So from Silicon Valley, that is now the center, like when Frankfurt, Germany created, and old schools of thought were created, right? Now Silicon Valley becomes the Frankfurt, Germany for cyberism, for this new mindset, and for this new quote unquote mission that is coming from behind the curtain, right? Or coming from that space, right? So everything at this point is online. Everything is digital. Data replaces the straw man. So you had the man, then you had the straw man, and now you have the avatar, right? Or you have the simulation. And so that is changing on how money is counted. Instead of, having the paper, where you write in your birth certificate and the Social Security, now you have the data, right? So instead of the oil and the coal, right? Now you have that information, you have these new digital ways that are considered financial systems, right? And everything else is to operate on this system. So a lot of people are still arguing against capitalism. I see those arguments on the internet all day, and maybe because I've been trying to avoid it, so I don't see it as much. But that conversation, when you hear people talk to this day, they're talking about capitalism. Capitalism hasn't existed since the 1800s, 16 to 1800s. That was the height of capitalism. They're not even addressing corporatism for what it is. Capital is the head, corporatism is the body. Cyberism is the soul, mind, body, soul, right? So they already got the mind, right? They already got the body. They finished that, body complete. The soul, you put on your, virtual reality glasses, you put on, and then you wind up in their world. That was what their professors were trying to figure out, what was the timeline of this happening. So right now, this is in their mind, that is like, we got them, but what wind up happening is they're exposed for not actually being truthful and honest about the technology and the effects of the technology. Now, you'll see, the radio towers put up, and all of this still deals with the order of things, right? You see these radio frequency disrupting nature on so many different levels. Your cell phone, the phone towers, and now with these AI data centers and all of these different things disrupt and becomes destructive to nature or to man, right? So instead of it, bringing up the community, in a real time, it destroys the community, destroys the mindset, and breaks. So it's like it's a opposite of what a pyramid was. So whereas the pyramids and the mounds and the temples, all of these were set up to vibrate in frequencies that would heal you, enlighten you, and carry you on to the next day, with a smile on your face. Whereas these data centers, they're all based on a toxic formula, and they're not improving they're not preventing the cancer. They're not preventing these things. They're causing it. And then instead of them coming up with a solution to fix it, all they're doing is changing the design and leaving it as is, and and then spending money to keep the propaganda to prevent people from knowing what's actually going on. Like that propaganda downplays the fact that they never fixed it. All they did was, just change the design, moved on. They got shows about it, and they'll show you all type of stuff that they're doing.
Stuff though.
You what?
We grew up learning about this. Our cartoons spoke about this directly. The Autobots, the Transformers, all of this stuff. They started educating us when we was youth.
So you remember there was a cartoon, even if you bring that up like that way, right? The cartoon Pinky and the Brain, and a few other different, just little cartoons where you got the character trying to take over the world, or you have the characters trying to save the world, right? And what wound up happening is one of the cartoons, I can't remember, I thought it was that one, but I was trying to find it, where they put all of these radio sets on the people, and they was using mind control from these radio sets, and these people was walking around and they was trying to figure out a way to, get these radio sets off of the people's head. This was the cartoon. I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. And now seeing the headsets and all these different things that they're using for their new gaming systems and their new technology and the way they trying to move forward, I'm like, I see it. I see, so a lot of the artists, are the magicians, or a lot of the musicians are the magicians. The spells come through this communication. So that's why their psychologist was like, we have to control or find a way to co-opt ideas. Ideas are really important to them. because those are seeds that's planted into the mind. So with culture industry, that was the Bible in the glass ceiling that we've been dealing with since 1800 or so. Like that glass ceiling, and it's been there for so long, people can't break past it. There's a few who did and pushed and tried, and I'm like, whoa, I made it through. But there's a lot, like they have an example of like flies or something like that they were locked in a jar, and when you took the top of the jar off, they still wouldn't fly past the part where they felt like there was something hindering them. So that's basically where society is at. The top is off, but everybody's staying because they're like, I don't want to, and they passing it on to their children. Don't go past that part because you won't ever get anywhere. So in music, they stealing some of my songs and my ideas and so or whatever. And I got to bang against these major corporations and tell them like, yo, I'm coming for my shit. Give me mine. Da 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 da. I got to deal with people that are like, yo, that's not doable because, you can't go past this space. Like, there's no way. Like, you just can't. Dealing with the child support. Nobody wins. This is lawyers, judges, regular people, friends, family. You can't win that. Just pay it. And then when I won, it was like, how did you do that? How did you go past something that wasn't blocking you? It was all in your mind. So because of that, first step of learning the language, and then I learned, oh shit, there's no boundaries there, right? So, and the part of understanding how to spin the polarity when somebody call you something or say something, how to find balance so you don't lose harmony, so you can stay in harmony. When somebody makes noise, you find exactly how to find the balance in notes so you don't make more noise, right?
I like that idea because I came up with an idea to deal with that during my years. I said chaos bring clarity. If you bring some chaos to the table, I should be able to bring clarity to the situation. The more chaos you bring, the more clarity I will bring.
So because life is, beautiful chaos. Like, it may seem chaotic to some, but you don't know that that's a seed. That seed has got to break through the dirt. It got to grow up. It got to, weather the storms, et cetera, et cetera. But every part of it is just a part of something larger. So that one seed, when you pull back, you look down, wow, that's a field of grass, right? You pull back a little further, wow, that's a forest. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of things that we deal with seem like this is it. How am I get any further than this? So we get lost in those moments, not seeing the bigger picture. And that has also been a cheat code for me, is having a lot more foresight. And that's what you can also pull from studying the past. You pick up the patterns. And when you study and pick up the patterns, you see, okay, this is what society does. And before you get to that part is the part that is always passed down from generation to culture, to society, et cetera, society globally. The first mission, and the mission on the walls, was know thyself. That's first. So I won't break that order. I'm going to tell you, know thyself is important. You got to know so you don't wind up a diabetic, somebody with high blood pressure. You don't wind up psychotic because you don't know yourself. These people will find your numbers and find your things about you and figure out how they can pry it from you, right? And pry it from you till you're just the shell of yourself. And then they implant all of these raggedy ass ideas, and then you wind up regurgitating them with everybody you communicate with, and then you poison them, and so forth and so on, and then it poisons the children. And now we're in a time where it's like, okay, the top is off, the glass ceiling is exposed, the curtains are pulled, but everything and anything that you actually want is actually tangible, whether it's reparations, whether it's staying free, free in your mind, being healthy, being the best you. This is probably the easiest time that has ever ever. Probably the easiest time in life. Meaning, if you don't there was a certain time when working at McDonald's was a joke. If you wasn't doing this or doing that, like, and you wind up selling drugs, or you wind up, robbing people, and you wind up doing things just to get money because I gotta feed my children, etc. That was the conversation, right? Now, you can sit home, make money. You can get in your car, make money. It's like you can be a delivery person. There's so many different simple ways to make money. And then the major corporations are at a point where they wind up washing out millions of people with that experiment. So now they're trying to make up for lost ground because some of the corporations weren't in on the joke. Like, although the top of the corporate message was clear to anybody in the 5%, that, hey, I think these guys are trying to reduce population. The rest of the rest of society was, still being thrilled and entertained by, the light in front of the mouth that was, they was getting eaten up by.
I hear you clearly, because I've been trying to tell people for years, do y'all not know that YouTube is a corporate space? It's not a playful space. You bring your business here, you put your merchandise out, you do this and you do that, and you build it right, you can become monetized. You can talk to another corporation. You can do tax-free stuff. You can do all kind of things right here on YouTube. I got people he's talking about Patreon. No, I've been on Patreon for a long time. I never promoted it. I never did that. I'd never seen where it was needed because I never asked for money. But I knew that you can go to Patreon and get any idea, whatever you try to do, you can get money from those who love and respect what you're doing, not following the entertainment business and the wizards and the magicians of this age. Because I got counterintelligence, always trying to counter my intelligence on YouTube. Every other day I can say anything or do anything. And I got a counterintelligence agent on my bumper trying to bump me off of whatever I'm doing. You have to build traps and you have to come out of this stuff. And a lot of people not faced with these type of things, but I ain't gonna take over the show.
But that was key, to the conversation of counterintelligence, because that is a part of their, conversation where you would see Agent Smith, and anybody would turn into Agent Smith. So they will pop up with this counterintelligent conversation, and then somebody else, you'd be like, everything was good. What happened? And out of nowhere, this message, and they would get that signal from the culture industry schools. And these schools are the reason why you would get a doctor reading you a script instead of actually looking at the person, the man or woman in front of them, the child in front of them, and being honest. Because instead, they're just trying to figure out what they got to read off of this script and what they got to do, and they're not looking at you. They're looking at your person. They're looking at the corporation and the money that could be made and the business that has to be carried so they can stay with their corporate, agenda. So everything. So that's key to it. But I would guess summarizing it all to where we at right now is the first thing I would say is, out of the three, I'm gonna give you three to the order, even though these three are like God. You get what I'm saying? So the first one would be know thyself. You still have to study who you are before you can engage with larger communities of people that are just as confused as you. So you have to know, so you can recognize problems that you may have with yourself before you even move on. And God willing, you do, and you can come across the next person. And if you see signs of them having trouble, maybe you can share some of that information on what you did to deal with your situation, right? So when I found myself with a bad diet and I was damn near died in my sleep, and I seen my friends dying in their sleep, and I said, what is going on? The first thing I had to do was start figuring out what was going on with me. And when I found out and I figured out it was, it was my diet, then I said, I got to fix that for myself, because no matter how much money I'm out here making and working and this and that, fam, I almost didn't wake up. So what do I got to do? So it was like, okay, stop eating meat for this amount of time to flush it out your system. Eat more greens, drink more water, continue doing your exercises. Okay. All right. So then I got, to a point of balance, right? So now it's not that, oh, I don't eat no meat ever. It's not that. It's just knowing like, yo, you got to have balance. I'll tell my grandson, I say, balance your garbage. Like, don't wind up, basing your whole day on garbage, because you'll wind up a toxic mentality and just all chaos throughout your life personally, and you'll just vibrate toxicity.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe the term "full of shit" is a literal term. You can be around full of shit.
Yo, that's definitely a real term, and a lot of people don't understand that it's more than just just the term. Because the reality is, when people breath stink, that's because their gut, not just sometimes it's the mouth, because the mouth also breaks it down and the food gets stuck in the teeth, et cetera, but it's because it's like the shit got to come out of somewhere. And a lot of people are constipated because the starches, the sugars, the salts, and these different things that we eat are not, they're not alive. So when you chew a piece of kale or an onion or something, a fruit or something like that, it's alive. Even no matter how far you chew it and break it down, when it goes in your body, it's still alive. So it's still moving. So it's going to come out your system. And then see other things in its way, it moves things out its way. When you drink the water, the water's alive. So when it go in your system, it just start moving. It just move things out of your way. But the juices, the syrups, the fake liquids, these chemicals that are passed off as juices and drinks, etc. And then you got these different fabrics that taste like food, and they go in your system, and they done set up like a goddamn furniture center because we done ate clay and all type of stuff that look like food, but in the corporate system, it's just passed around as something to keep their cog in the wheel rolling downhill, right? And that's the mission of these behind the scenes people, is to have population at the bottom while they can look down and take a piss and shit on us at any given moment. So when like, okay, if they're trying to keep us down, right, how can I not participate in it for myself? Or how can I how can I help my friends and family not participate in keeping all of us down, right? So that's what a conversation, okay, yo, make sure you eat healthy, because then your mind will be right. If your mind is right, then we could, there's no confusion about certain things, right? So that's a part of it about keeping your sanity, is balancing out the garbage in your diet, reducing it and raising the level of the greens that you eat. Start your day with water and fruit. Get some greens, turn them into juices, smoothies. Every nutrition and mineral that you may need, just put it all in one smoothie and drink. I know people be like, yo, you can't mix this with that. And I'm like, yeah, but when it's in the body, what is it doing? It's mixing. So if I wait 40 hours to drink this or eat that, to drink the water and then eat like, it's all going to mix in your body anyway. So I don't want to slow people up with, any particulars on how they, adjust their diet. But at the same time, just knowing like, yo, keep it simple. Like, if string beans could save your life, drink string beans. Like, if you put a plate of string beans, that can balance out your sugar, right? And it can prevent you from, having a diabetes or something like that, right? But your jaw will get so tired from eating these string beans that you'll never finish, and there goes that. So the reality is, if you put them in like a blender and you drink a cup of them, that cup is the equivalent of half a plate. So you can do that with different foods, so you can start your day with everything you need. And then, to keep us going, what we're going to start doing, eating some chips here, some, this cake here, these M&Ms and this and that, these little things. But at least your body's like, at least you gave me something to get this crap out of you. You got what I'm saying? Opposed to just doing that. So that's important to get to the next step, right? So if the first step is knowing thyself, the second step is knowing your surroundings. And the observation and perspective of the person or the man or woman, and the child that knows themselves, when they're introduced into society, they're comfortable. A lot of people aren't comfortable with themselves. A lot of people have self-doubt, no self-esteem, and different things like that because they don't know themselves. They don't have enough discipline to finish this or do that or get to this. But when it comes to a corporate setting, they fit in perfect because they're just a cog in the wheel that's willing to roll downhill, right? So a lot of people don't make it to the next tier. So they don't know, beyond what they see a lot of times. So that's where you would get what they call the 85ers. And the 85ers are basically, 80% of the public just don't know. They just go, yo, that's what they said, man. I'm just doing what they said, bro.
Leader, they like the sheep. People don't
And
realize being called a sheep in the Bible is a very strong comparison, because you look towards your leader.
Right. So that's where you get a lot of misleaders. The misleaders know that society, if led correctly, can actually hold up a new Messiah or a new that's reverse, because the Messiah would lead the sheep. And where you leading the sheep to the promised land, or to better land, to better ground, to food, etc., to a better future. So that's where you get J. Edgar Hoover, the counterintelligence king, saying, prevent the Black Messiah. So that was one of the missions that the corporations all were set out to do. And that's where you get a lot of people, becoming anything other than, their higher self. You would get the worst of everybody, because Hollywood showed you the bad guy's always the one who's really living a life that you want to have. The child talks back, the parents have broken up, that all of these things are projected as the norm. The television shows it. Then you go into schools, and this is your environment. And if you don't know yourself, when you hear somebody tell you that, yo, what you should do bop, bop, bop. And like, yo, fam, if I do that, that's counter, that would counter my health, in a way where I will wind up hurt. So when you hear and you see a pattern of things that, are counterproductive to yourself from coming from certain places, then you know what type of environment you're in. You're in an environment that you have to always stay alert. You always got to be vigilant. You always have to expect some things that would be quote unquote unexpected, right? That blind side that you can't see, and it can change a whole trajectory of where you was, heading sometimes, right? And it would take you a minute just to get back on course. And I'm telling you from experience. That's why I'm saying all of this stuff, because it's like, yo,
what's out there, they trying to adjust you. Believe me, I've fought with them for years now.
So that's the reality. Like, the reality is, like, I couldn't tell you the stuff if I didn't go through it. You understand? Like, people are very clever where they can read about things, and then they get in front of the camera and they tell you stuff that sounds great, but in the reality, like, a lot of that stuff doesn't work, and a lot of it, you know, is not meant for you, because the person who wrote it probably didn't go through it, and probably didn't you know, have a personal experience. They just were good at writing, right? So a lot of the things that we deal with, that we just take this one dry perspective, is usually, you know, from a perspective of somebody who might not have that experience. So I'm just saying my experience personally. I can't, you know, not to downplay anybody else's, you know, respectfully. It's just more like, I'm just telling you some of the stuff that we had learned about, as far as like when I brought up the 85, you know, 85, 15, 5%ers, right? You know what I'm saying? The 5%ers, the 15, the, you know, excuse me, 5, the 10, the 85, right? Now what wind up happening is we can kind of like look back and see if that was right. Is that something that we can carry on? Is that a truth? Is, you know, is there a percentage of people who actually, you know, can lead and have the information? Do you have another percentage that can influence the 85? Maybe the 5 are not that influence you, but the 10 is influence you. Then you got the 80 or 85 that's that actually is just trying to be a part of something. So they'll move, you know, in a way with, you know, as a collective. And I can say, oh, yo, out of all the time that I heard that since high school, that's true. You know what I'm saying? I had people of different nationalities saying, yo, that's true, right? I had people that had different belief systems that all have to agree and say, that is true. As an artist, I can say that is true. So as a man, on multiple levels, in the business, out of the business, in society, we got to say that is also a fact that you have to know, as far as what you're dealing with when you get past knowing thyself, right? So you get to that point where you realize that you're going to deal with a small percentage that are leaders, a small percentage that are influencers, and a large percentage that are followers, right? And what are they following? Are they following something that doesn't have integrity? Are they following something that is going downhill or uphill? Are they going forward? Are they staying in place? What are the 85 following? What and who? So when you're in certain environments, you have to know they're following this. This is following gangs. This one is following politics. This one is so when you get to that point, you'll know what you can manage, how you can manage and make it through to get to the next level, right? And the next level is where you're passing that message to another generation. And I'm, you know, maybe it's me just trying to, maybe you can help me with finding the words to summarize it. Like, if the first one is know thyself, and second one is knowing your surroundings, knowing your environment, you know, and so you can master those moments, and then you get to a point where you can you know,
Well, I put spirituality there, me myself. See, can you read that form right there on the Machiavelli? Machiavelli? Read it out loud.
Great prophets. What is that?
Israel
That's what it says.
has been plotting since '96.
Oh no, I'm looking at something completely different. I was looking at the neon letters, and I definitely can't see
The
this
neon is
brightness.
great podcast community discourse. So we having a discourse here. Do you know what a discourse is?
That's a new app. That's good conversation.
Right. See, the community don't know how to speak. You may know yourself, I may know myself, but we don't know how to speak to each other in the community. And I liken it to the small town that I'm in, because when I wake up in the morning and go to the store, don't nobody say hello, how you doing, good day, or whatever. They say some old wicked, ignorant stuff to you. And then later on, they might speak to you, but they put chaos in your life before they even speak to you.
I think so help me out with this one. Help me out with this one, because in all honesty, I have to say, I don't want to be selfish with the conversation, because I think I said it, but I wasn't aware that I said it. So we getting this live, we figuring this out in real time, right? So I said, know thyself first, right? And that's just so you can know how you can, every part of yourself.
You know what?
I don't know.
You are on the board. You know if you're a pawn, you're a knight, you're a bishop, you're a rook, a king, or queen. Most people don't know their position.
Okay. So that's where, okay, so let's do it like this. So because you said spirituality, and I feel that is true. Whether you believe in something or don't believe in nothing, you have to know that, right? So I don't know if once you know yourself, is that a part of it or is that another step? What do you think?
That's a part of it.
That's a part of knowing thyself.
Because no matter what you say, you can even want to be an atheist. There's a spiritual side in you that speaks. And when you cut that spiritual side off, you cut a part of you off.
Okay, so that's fair. That's fair. So knowing thyself is spirituality is a part of that.
Yeah.
Knowing the environment that's outside of self. And then, I think to get to another level, of that Trinity, so you can repeat the cycle is passing it on to a child, and I'm trying to figure out a way which would be considered the future. You get what I'm saying? So and then you get in an environment and you make it, through these obstacle courses to get to a space where you can procreate.
You got to put the God together. You got to put the male and the female principles together to create a child of your own, because you can't control no one else's child. You can help them as much as you can, but when you create one of your own, then you can raise it up in the direction it needs to go.
So even keeping that in mind with the masculine and feminine environment that we're in, it's still knowing that there's a tomorrow and a tomorrow after tomorrow that has to be kept in mind, because I feel that our community forgets that and becomes selfish. They never get past knowing thyself, so they never see the environment, so they never pass on the information to make it to the next day because they're selfish. So when you're saying, I'm just trying to tie in that next part, right? I'm like trying to figure out how we get to this to this future conversation, so we can pass on the conversation that there's traps in society. They're trying to undermine our brilliance. They're doing things that are counterproductive to society. You have to communicate that so the next generation doesn't fall for the traps, lose itself, doesn't know itself.
Well, you got to incorporate. What you do is like we sitting up here, we're in a corporate environment, a corporation environment. Create your corporation. And then corporation to the next generation.
Well, that's why I'm saying this is why I want to be clear. We're in the world where this isn't even this is cyberism. Where we at today is in a space where like corporations used to be able to get passed down. Now this technology, all the tech, what they call the tech bros, that ism that we're in is cyberism. And these things can be passed on and will live beyond us. Some of the conversations from the elders we see online, our conversation would be seen beyond, God willing, beyond generations, for generations on, they'll see it. And God willing is able to pass it on to another generation. Now, the message that's being left is really key and really important, because what was done, I just want to add this into the conversation, right? As a great example, when you was in school, do you remember hearing about the Boston Tea Party?
Yes.
Now, what I remember from that in school, it was like, you know, it was a part of like the whole colonial rebellion against the crown, and
British is coming. The British is coming.
the British is coming, all of that, right? So anybody can look this up at this point, but you can do a little bit of research on your own if you want. You know how important that time was and why they wrote it in history, but they altered it. They altered the story. Oh, they didn't tell us the whole story. Here's the whole story, or parts of the story that you have to keep in mind and know what's going on. So the Boston Tea Party at the time was taking place, Boston, New York, Virginia, Baltimore, all of the, on the East Coast of the Americas. These different colonists were set up, and they were called I believe the Patriots or something like that, whatever. But either way, these different colonists that was trying to set up the 13 colonies in this new, quote unquote, new America, new US, new order for them. So as they're trying to break away from the crown, what winds up happening is they coming across people that look like you and I, right? Consistently, every state, every city, every country, every county was managed by people of color, right? Different shades, dark, red, brown, etc., but shades of black and brown. So that conversation is key to the Boston Tea Party, because the notes and the letters that they wrote described what was going on and what they was dealing with. At the time, black people, quote unquote, black people, had nothing to do with what they was doing. They say black people related more to England because of the Moors were going back and forth. The black people related to Britain because the Moors were going back and forth. When what wound up happening was the British were the bankers. Now, it went from England to Britain. So how it went from America to the United States, it went from England to Britain. And the British were the bankers, and they still had Moors within their system. The English had Moors within their system. But what they was doing was, it's just like anything. What winds up happening is you got to remember, this is the 1492, the fall of the Moors, and their systems were being traded for money. Their systems was being traded, their maps and their information was being traded, so the few that were left can hold on to things. So by the time you get to a 1700, the Moors still have society, spread throughout different cities, but they're not in power, but they have information that other people want, and these new colonists need, right, to succeed in their program. So they show them these different maps. Then they figure out where we're at over here, because they never knew. It was not on any map for a really long time. They just discovered a map from 200,000 years ago that had America on a map. And why is that a big deal? I think everybody should know that. Why is that a big deal? Because for, I don't want to get the number wrong, whether it's 20,000 or 200,000, it's thousands of years. Nobody knew that America existed. Why is that important? Because we were being protected. The Africans, the Moors, the whoever at the time, they said, we don't want anybody going to that side corrupting our family over there. So they removed us from all the maps. So the mission of the colonists, the capitalists, etc., was find Atlantis, find the city of gold, find the fountain of youth, find this mysterious city that is being passed on through these different stories by the Moors and by other people that seem to only exist in these stories. So they would send out different missions, to figure out where this land was at, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't find it. So finally, when they get to the Boston Tea Party, now they done established that we're here, and they're just trying to reinforce with their guys to bring them over here, right? Because now they've come across people walking around with gold, crowns, food growing on trees, food everywhere. Everybody seems to be wealthy in their mind, in their eyes. Manhattan in particular was considered a Garden of Eden. It was an island, the equivalent, or if not better, than a Jamaica or Trinidad. Manhattan, of all places. So when they got to Manhattan, it was the mouth of North America. So they trying to pry open and bring their system through Manhattan. And they come and they document everything. They're telling you everything. So in the Boston Tea Party, the notes that they left are the conversations that they were having about the people and what they were dealing with. So they addressed them as the noble natives, the dark noble natives. Now, why is that important? Because when they were trying to break away from the crown, and most of the natives related to Britain more than anything else because of the Moors, they said, okay, we got to do something to make the rest of the world that we're dealing in, their world, their small world that they was dealing with, convince them that what we're doing is just and need to be backed up, right? So they painted themselves black, red, headdresses, and they painted themselves dark, brown, red, dark red, brick red. They painted themselves, all these Europeans painted themselves. They would run into stores and make these makeshift outfits, but they would paint themselves, their faces and bodies, whatever was exposed, they would paint themselves black, brown, etc., etc. Then John Hancock and Samuel Adams, they were the point men of this. I'm gonna remember the name, but because it's like the sons of not anarchy, the sons of Columbus, the sons of something. It's the sons of patriots or some shit like that. Whatever the name exactly is at this point. So they're running point. They never paint their faces, etc. But they're instructing the rest of their crew of what they need to do. And when they painted themselves black, right, and they started dumping the tea, and they was like making sounds like as if they were like, ew, woohoo, you know, making whatever sounds we was making in those days. They on this ship and they busting up Europe's, the England's tea, busting up the different ships from the British or whatever, and they dumping their tea into the water, and they're dressed like the black people of that time. And they said the reason why we did that is because these natives, these noble natives, are considered the highest of society. Anytime something bad goes on, they know it. Everybody in the world know it was them. It was the Europeans, right? So this is their words. That's their words. They said anything dealing with corruption or something terrible or something that was out of order, nobody expected it to be anything and anybody other than the invaders, the colonizers, the Europeans, whatever you call them, right? So to have people looking at a ship from the distance with people dressed that they seem like, oh, those are the people that we respect and honor, and they're dumping the British tea. Okay, so maybe we do need to get away from the crown. We do need to get away from Britain, because if the black people saying no, then we going like they the highest of the highest. So they follow suit. And that was left out of our history books because the rest of the conversation and the conversation of saying, wait a minute, if the natives were considered noble natives, then you got to look into their names, where they lived, that they're indigenous, that you got to look into how the tools that they use. You start looking into things. So they was trying to erase us out of history and recreate the narrative, because did I ever know that they would, that they were dressed as black people? No, they just said, and they got pictures of Indians, if you look at the picture, if you look it up. So when you know that part, right, and that message winds up vanishing, that's because, okay, you know yourself, right? You see your environment. You never pass on the message that, yo, they erased us from history. They erased, yo, this land was yours. This was that you're this type of person. You're considered. So you don't pass on. So they didn't pass on the message of I'm not going to say they didn't pass on the message. The message got lost because we got bombed on so much, right? Where a great example of that is Manhattan, the Bronx, New York City in particular during the Reagan era, because everybody else in the world, everybody else in America in particular, North America in particular, had factory jobs and were considered Reagan probably so amazing and so high regarded because they had good jobs. They had the jobs, factory jobs were so good, they didn't have to go to college. You know, they could just work at the factory all their life and pass that on. Or if they wanted to pay for college, they could pay that with an industrial factory job. But in New York City in particular, the world was a lot different. We got crack, we got cocaine, we got all these different police, stop and frisk, so many different levels of our life was turned upside down. Where before, when you look at old Manhattan, when you look at pictures of the old New York pre-1980, you see, if you go back to the 1500s, 1600s New York, you see beautiful people dressed up. 1700s, you see them dressed in beautiful, clothes. It was on par with London. And then 1980 hit. And then all of a sudden you got multiple abandoned buildings because all the corporations, the mission was, we're going to test everything on a consolidated population. And they tested all of the psychological and physical warfare on multiple generations. And then they got to our generation, Generation X, and it said, okay, there's going to be another wave of experiments because they perfected all the prior experiments. And then they tried a bunch of new stuff, which is the technology that is now being used on the Generation Y and Z and Alpha. So everything that was perfected on us is now happening to everybody else. So that's why I say another key part of the order has to be that conversation, that communication of what was done to make it through the trap. That's, again, I would say I would have to agree with myself because I did do that. I wound up learning myself. I passed on the message of getting through the child support. I knew myself, wound up studying my environment, and then passed on the message of how I made it through the trap. And then I just keep repeating that cycle. So honestly, I must say the three for me, for the order, is know thyself, know thy environment, and like, how you gonna want to summarize that? Like passing on the message, like communicate, like pass that on to the next generation, pass it on so we can continue to make progress.
I will continue.
So that's, that's what I got for now, and again, I can elaborate on more stuff, but, I just wanted to share the time and share the space with you and, get the message across. Those are key for us to make it in this cyberism, in this new world, because you see Palantir and you see all of these data collection centers being built that are, destroying their environments. And, we have to do our best to let people know that that's not a joke. Like, I'm glad on one end you have a RFK and people like that. You have them doing stuff where they're reversing some of or they're exposing a lot of the poisons that they were giving to children, and they're pulling some of them out of the schedule and trying to, expose them. So on one end, that's happening. So while we digging ourselves out of one hole, we get put in another hole with this technology, with the Palantirs and the data collection centers, et cetera, because that's owned by the people who's bombing on children, who's doing different things. A lot of these things are tied to people who don't care about people. And when you have systems set up by people that grew up in a bubble, never was a part of society, grew up in, and got to a point in life where they only related to the people that they were related to and anybody that was in that small circle. So these people are set up again and put in charge of platforms and situations that, you know, you'll see like, yo, how come there's mad fights on this platform? Or how come there's only naked women? Or how come there's that? Because they'll let that go and won't stress that as much. Because again, that's how they grew up, with these stereotypes and these you know, caricatures of who we were in society. And that's why now some of these artificial intelligence and the programmers that wind up, you know, creating these systems, when you stand in front of a judge, and because everything is going digital, everything is digital. If some people,
let's deal with that, because you have, I use a term now, don't nobody ever contest the term, but I'm an Israelite foundational Black American. Not a foundational Black American. I put Israelite in front of it because the Moors and the Israelites terminology scares people. They know how deep it goes back, those that know. So the foundational Black Americans, people attack that because of the terminology and how they phrase their thing and stuff. No one ever attacks Israelite foundational Black Americans. Some of them act like they never heard it.
so everything, you know, in the system, you know, that eats itself usually gets swallowed up in the rest of that mix. So the point is, as it gets swallowed up, the mission of making it out of it is knowing your environment and how, you know, to get out of those different scenarios. So you could get to a point, you know,
You have to create a world of your own. That's why I said create the corporation, get a website, put the information on the website, and let the people feed off your information.
Mm-hmm.
Because each one teach one.
That's it. That's number 3. Each one teach one. Know
One,
thyself, know your surroundings, each one teach one.
How to make it around the surroundings and stuff like that.
So you can get to a point. So because knowing because when you reproduce, that's another child that needs to know itself. So you wind up back in that same cycle.
Yes. And you're reproducing yourself in someone else. That's why I say it's best to get the female and the male presence, create a child, and set him on his direction. But it's deeper than that. You have to set a lot of people, because there's a lot of lost sheep out here. The 15% and the 5% got a lot of work to do. It's 85% out there that's totally deaf and blind.
Mm. Yeah. So because of that, you know, it's like that's the best way we can sum it up. You know, as far as, you know, any order or anything like that or whatever. So, but yeah, that's definitely. What's up, man?
Some drunk ass dude
Just now?
blew his whole tire out right over there.
Oh, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. You have to check outside.
Yeah. You know, you need some onion for you to wash down some of that good stuff.
Right.
Okay, cool. Oh, you see, I'm having like a whole family moment right now. Pardon me, y'all. I just realized I almost forgot I was on. Yo, that's crazy. Okay. Yeah, back to it. Yo, is it? Yo.
You know, some people might see you and be like, that's a young guy. This guy just said he was a grandfather.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's what I'm saying. That was key. I hear you here.
So I got a dragon fruit.
You got a dragon fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's dope. That's really good. We gotta get some of our purple power. Our purple power is where you put.
My dad.
No, you eat that for yourself, and you know you could give him his own. Here you go. Do that. Thanks, and I'll wrap up over here so we can get have a conversation. Yeah. So yeah, it's you know, that's a part of. Yo, how are you managing this and that? And that? I'm grandpa, I'm daddy. I'm I got my, you know, everything, every part of this job there's different levels of the job of, that I'm, doing my best to manage. And it's like I don't see I don't see I don't see it as like, oh, it's a breeze, it's easy. I'm like, this is crazy. This is crazy. I take a lot of walks. I take a lot of long walks to like calm myself down, drink my water. But walking is another way to just help. Okay, it's not that deep. Relax. The answer will come to you. And in the past few days, it's like it's been like that. It's been consistent chaos. So the walks help, and that also that's a part of knowing thyself. You got to know how to, how to be disciplined, integrity, and being honorable. Those are the key. And the foundational things to having a beautiful life, and beautiful wife. More than that, I ain't got a beautiful wife right now because my wife is my art, or wife is my music, and I'm doing my best to take care of it and treat it with the love and respect that it deserves, because it's a gift that's beyond me, and that's why my karma is up in the so much that when something seems bad is happening, the karma corrects it. So that's why I'm like, yo, I appreciate you coming on with this conversation, because it worked just in time for where my mind is at. Because half of the time we be freestyling when we just build, but it's always on time though. So I appreciate the conversation, and anything else that you need to ask for, you already know. Anytime you just reach out anytime.
All right, man. Go take care of all them hats you gotta wear.
Yes. You already know. Royalmusic.com. That's still up and running. I'll double check. I gotta update it, but everything is there. But there's ways to connect with me online through the Facebook, through the Instagram, through the TikTok, Twitter, all of those different platforms. I'm there. RAWYAL. The clothes, the hats, the shirts, the paintings, the music, different things that I'm doing. I'm still accessible. And I appreciate your time, and I encourage you to listen to the music that I have out on Spotify, the different platforms. I appreciate you for playing the first, the song, setting it off to let you know I do that. The different 15 hats I have in each category and shit. So what's that?
Recording yet?
You said what?
Are you recording yet? I know you probably have the ability to.
See, he exposing me. Everybody's all my music friends are like, yo, fam, are you recording yet? Because it's been a minute, and I've been saying that was a part of the mission. And have I done that? I haven't started recording yet. But anyway, I will get to it.
Okay, I know the public like, where's music at?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm putting out music, but as far as recording myself, I'm recording, but I haven't been recording myself. And when I start doing that, I can work. My work will just triple, because I'm doing it where I got to go somewhere to get to that, to talk to this person, to do that. And it's like, usually I do everything myself, but I wound up with a computer broke, got a new computer. I got to learn the computer, learn this, learn that program, learn the new things. And it's like, damn, I got to finish this first, and I got to finish this, and I got to do this. So those 15 hats that I'm trying to keep in order to get to the next 15 hats. You get what I'm saying? So because I got some joints that I just can't wait to record. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm like, yo, so I'm doing my best to manage everything, to push, and make progress. And I don't know if you see, Lizzo just popped out copying my song. So it's like, yo, that's crazy. So that's something new added to the pile. Like, oh, that's crazy, but it lightens the load because it's Lizzo and she's in the song. I say big as Lizzo with the WAP. And guess who copies the song? Lizzo. And I was asking her, and I actually wanted her on the song. So now so either way, it lightens the load and it helps me make more progress so I can get to the other 15 hats where I can record and get back to it and release.
What was number 3?
Number 3 was each one teach one. Reach one, teach one, each one teach one. However that's phrased, that is number 3. Number 3 is let up know what's going on. It's like you gotta let me know what's going on. Yo, fam, you better know yourself. Yo, fam, you watch out for that. Da, da, da. So you gotta like don't just notice stuff and be selfish and don't tell nobody, because that's violating the order. You gotta let somebody know what's going on. Yo, fam, that's poison. That's this, that's that. Don't do that. I passed that message on to my grandson, and I'm so thankful that I figured that out early enough. And that's why I'm grateful that you even brought it up, because I passed that message on to him, and it's a part of him now, you know, and it's always great to hear him, you know, pass that on to the children that he's around in the park. You know, he'd be like, yo, eat your good stuff. Eat your, you know what I'm saying? Like I eat my good stuff. You know, he eats his, you know, kale and beets. And so I'm saying that's a part of reach one, teach one is definitely key for number 3.
All right, we can end the show.
All right. Peace.
Peace.